Folks. Oh, I'm on. Wow, no pressure then. The moment that changed my life was the moment I met Litvinenko. He came crashing through the skylight in my bedroom, pounced onto me and tried to drag me from my bed to my death. I was hallucinating, obviously. He was already dead. I was just nearly dead. But I had a fever, but I knew that I had to find some kind of inner strength. He was definitely there in this moment, but if I stepped aside, he wasn't. So what I had to do was find some way to talk myself down from the worst trip ever. This was not acid. This was worse. So I closed my eyes and just kept on saying to myself, this is not real, it will pass. This is not real, it will pass. This is not real, it will pass. Within a few hours, I won. Litvinenko fucked off out of the window and got out of my life. It was that moment that I realized that I had this extra little power to get me through some of the toughest times of my life. Swinging back to March 2014, I was a dancing builder. Me, classical ballet, believe it or not, and my lovely partner, he was a fine dancer. I've never really fully worked out what that is. Life was good. We had a building and renovation company. We used to roll around in our little truck all day having a right laugh. We'd have a nice dirty pint at the Great Eastern. I'm sure a lot of Brightoners here know the Great Eastern, being there in our filthy dungarees, and life was pretty good. And then, fast forward to July 2014, I was having a shower and I found a lump in my right breast. And I intuitively knew that something was wrong. I took my breast and my lump and myself to the doctors the following day. And they were a little bit, I think it's okay, but let's refer you. So off I popped to Preston Park, where we have the most incredible facilities here. And we're very lucky. We're incredibly lucky in Brighton to have such amazing breast care facilities. More on that later. I must not digress, otherwise we're all going to be here till 7. So I'm really going to try and stay on point. Anyway, so I took my boob and my lump along to Preston Park, and they were incredibly thorough. I'm just thinking, my goodness, is this what they do with everyone? And then I kind of clocked it that probably not. Anyway, a week later, I went back, and of course, we know, because we just saw the outcome, was that I had cancer. Kind of time does stand still. All the cliches that you hear about, there's that cliche that the world stopped spinning. I'm not entirely sure what that would feel like, because I think we'd all just be spun off somewhere into space. But there is that sense of everything stops. The only thing that I really remember is seeing my partner's tears as he came into the room where I was standing. It was pretty grim. It was quite a nasty cancer as well. It had spread to my lymph. It's called triple negative. I was thinking, if it's triple negative, somewhere out of that there may become a positive, but sadly not. What it meant for me is that I had to have surgery, followed by chemotherapy, followed by 5 weeks of radiotherapy. This was not going to be fun. Following surgery and all the complications that brings, emotionally, physically, I can't even go into that again because I'll sidetrack, so I've got to move on. Chemo was looming. And strangely enough, I never felt that I was going to die. I was never scared of dying, but I was terrified of losing my long, blonde, beautiful, curly hair. From the previous picture, you'll see that I had sort of rather grungy dreadlocks. That was a few years ago. But I'd nurtured this beautiful, gorgeous, long hair, and I was absolutely terrified of losing it. It was a few days before my first round of chemo, and I was wandering around the lanes in my own little private pity party, and just feeling pretty shit. And I happened to walk past Damage, which is was my hairdresser's. And I looked through the window and I saw my hairdresser was actually free. So I walked in, I plopped myself down and I'm like, shave off half my hair. And she did. And this is her doing it. And in that moment, I kind of got my power back and I took control and I thought, you know what? I am not going to allow this diva called cancer, because she is a diva. She comes in and takes over like royalty. But I'm not going to let this bitch come into my life and ruin me. I was going to take control. And it was in the coming hours immediately after the buzz cut. In fact, I think I might have invented that, because there's loads of people walking around with buzz cuts these days and there wasn't then. So I think I take the credit for that. Thank you. It was in the moments after that, or the coming hours, that I came up with the daily different headgear challenge. That's just some of them. The idea being that what I would do is during my chemotherapy treatment, I would place a different piece of headgear on my head every day for the duration of my treatment. The reason for this was that I kind of wanted to take, it sounds a bit weird looking at that, but it kind of wanted to take the attention away from me. And I wanted to raise awareness about breast cancer, particularly in younger women and men. I sort of didn't think about the fact that men could get breast cancer too. But yeah, I really wanted to reach out to the younger audience. Believe it or not, then I was quite young. Cancer ages you significantly. I'm only 35. Anyway, so I was going to post this picture every day, raising awareness about breast cancer. I also wanted to raise a little bit of money for Macmillan, who'd been amazing. But more importantly, I wanted something that was going to just help me through one day at a time. When you have a cancer diagnosis, people say all sorts of strange things to you. Throwaway comments like, all you've got to do is stay positive. Me, when I'm standing outside in the middle of the night in a February storm, stark bollock naked, no hair, putting a wet towel over my head, trying to stop the burning sensation that is going through my body, no amount of positivity in that moment is going to help me. I'd just like to put it out there that there is no positivity without negativity. I was feeling pretty negative in that moment. Another thing people say to you is, all you've got to do is stay strong. I'm like, oh God, here we go. I was feeling pretty weak because I'd just been given a whole load of poison in my body. And when people are saying to me, all you've got to do is stay strong, I'm feeling like, oh, but I feel really weak, and will you want to come and see me if I'm feeling weak? And oh, pity party. So not very useful. The other thing that people say is just take one day at a time. And that's what this headgear challenge was all about. Unfortunately, it wasn't really working as well as I'd hoped. I soon realized that actually what needed to happen is to take one moment at a time. Bear with, it will come to me any moment. Before I'd started my chemo, I had signed up for the Brighton Half Marathon. As you can see, I did manage to do it in a rather smashing pink onesie and a fabulous top hat. And I loved it, but I wanted more. And it was then that Macmillan came to me and they offered me a place on London Marathon. I'm not sure if many of you out there are aware, but getting on London Marathon is kind of like, the places on the marathon are kind of like gold dust. So to be handed one on a plate, I was kind of like, oh, yeah, well, let me think about that. Yes. Now, before I had my cancer, there's no way I would have said yes to running a marathon. I would have thought of every excuse under the sun not to run a marathon. Yeah, my knees are a bit dodgy, or no, work schedule too much. All of these excuses, but all of those excuses are just fear. And for some reason, going through this process, I just thought, bollocks, I'm just going to do it. So I did it, and I got my place. Fast forwarding on significantly, we've only got 15 minutes. This thing is telling me I've only got 4 minutes to go. Okay, I'm going to have to speed talk. My treatment had finished. It had taken about 18 months. It was pretty severe. And sort of towards the end part is where it becomes really difficult. I had sepsis, meningitis, cellulitis. This arm was nearly amputated twice because of infection. I had a couple of spinal fractures, but that was all done. That was all in the past, and I had to start my marathon training. Now, I had done more miles leading up to this. I think I'd reached about 10 miles before I found out I was doing the marathon. But anyway, I needed a plan, so I printed off my plan, stuck it on the fridge, and went out for my first training run, which was 3 miles. Can't do it, can't do it, can't do it, can't do it. I'd got about 500 yards, and I just thought, oh my God, I can't do it. I can't do a marathon. I can't do a marathon. It's a bloody nightmare. What was I thinking? I can't do it. And this fear started to come in and consume me. And I thought, got to have a word with yourself, love, because this isn't good. This isn't good. You've got to get your head in the right space. So I had a word, and I thought, one moment at a time. I thought of Litvinenko. I thought of him in my room and thought, don't think about the 26 miles. That's crazy. Think about what you've got to do right here, right now, in this moment. And moment by moment, I got through those 3 miles. Now, marathon training is long and arduous, so to keep that bit short, 3 miles turns into 6, 6 miles turns into 12, 12 miles, it goes on and on and on. And then I find myself at the beginning of London Marathon. Ta-da! So you can see here, I'm terribly jolly and everything is fabulous and I'm having a smashing time and think, what's all the fuss about? What's all the fuss about this 26 miles? I'm not getting it. And then bam, everything changes. My legs are screaming at me. My body is just frozen. My hip flexors are just screaming. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't. Self-doubt. Self-doubt like I've never had in my mind. And yet again, I remembered Litvinenko. 1 moment at a time, it will pass. However hard this is, it's either going to get better or it's going to get worse, but it's definitely going to pass. It was that strategy of literally taking 1 moment at a time, 1 step at a time, that has got me over the line of, now bear with me on this, on the statistics. I think it's something like 10 half marathons, 2 Brighton marathons, 1 New York marathon. This is New York. What else? In the last 3 weeks, three weeks ago, I ran a 40-mile ultra marathon. Thank you. Thank you very much. I did hallucinate in that one. It wasn't Litvinenko, it's just the fields all started to go pink and fluffy, and it was all like, oh, this is nice. And that was really tough, but I did it. And that was 1 moment at a time. That took a long time, that one. The week after, I did the Royal Parks Half, and I've just got back from Amsterdam where I ran the marathon on Saturday. Life is a bit like a marathon. It's long and it's hard. You have highs and you have lows. I've suffered with depression, anxiety, and loneliness all my life. I still suffer with it now. But what I do when the dark dog comes in and faces me and growls, I look at it and I say, you're scary. I don't like you, but I know it will pass. Life for me is about little moments. Oh, that's a bit like, what's his name? Forrest Gump. Oh, life is like Brooks chocolate. So I've completely gone off piste. But I think it's really, really, really important to know that striving for happiness all the time doesn't work. For me, we're kind of setting ourselves up to fail a little bit if we do that. So for me, it's like the happy moments pass, the sad moments pass, the anxiety passes, the depression passes, the loneliness passes, the happiness, the nerves of doing this talk will pass. The nerves leading up to this are terrifying. I can tell you now, there's no way I would have done this. I feel very privileged to be asked. I feel especially privileged to be speaking after all the amazing people that we've seen today. And they've all done it, and we've all been nervous, but it's just been one moment at a time. And for them, their talks have passed. For me, I'm still in mine. So what I would like to say to you all this evening as you're leaving here is, whilst we will be fearful in our lives, always, there are going to be times when we're fearful, face that fear, tell it to fuck off, and go out there and be the most courageous person you can possibly be. Thank you.